there, beer hunters and Wadge bankers. Welcome back to another episode of the Beer Huntress. I hope you're all exceptionally well. As you can see, I am on tour today. I've been invited down to the Twisted Wheel Brewery in Warrington, and I've been joined by Anthony Barrett, who is the head brewer, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favourite styles. I've picked a black IPA for today, and so he's going to talk me all the way through that beer, and he's going to tell me a bit of history about the brewery as well. So, hello Anthony, say hello to all of my viewers. Tell me a little bit about how you got into brewing, Anthony.
So originally it was a bet. A friend of my dad's was a brewer, and I was a chef at the time, and it was one Christmas. I was absolutely exhausted, went to the pub to see my dad, and I was sat there pretty much half asleep at the bar, and Julian walked in, hit me on the back really hard, and was like, "What do you lad worry about? You don't work any hours, you want to try brewing for a living." So it came a bit from that, and obviously not quite as simple, but ended up getting a job in a brewery down south, worked my way up from the bottom, and that's how I got into it.
You've got quite a reputation as well as you were brewing. You've got quite an accolade of different breweries behind you. Do you want to name any of them? You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable.
No, I mean, I was at Hogsback, which is a very traditional regional brewery down at Surrey. That's where I learned a lot, especially regarding consistency and mostly cask beer, but we did do a lot of bottles. We were brewing every day, so it was a very, very busy brewery. Then went up, had a couple in between that didn't last long, then went to Vocation. I was there 4.5 years, something like that, back from when they first started to when I left. And then, various personal reasons caused me to move about a bit, and then ended up here with Mark, Eleanor and Laura, and been here for literally, it's just over a year now. No, I started, was the first week of lockdown, so Boris shut the pubs on the Friday, and I'd spoke to Mark a couple of weeks before that, and it was basically like, he rang me, obviously when Boris made his announcement, and said, well, I haven't got a business. Yeah. And it was actually quite funny. I was on Facebook, and Charles Farrams had put out that they had a load of hops available, like Citra Mosaic, because they were worried about all the breweries shutting and the contracts not being taken up. So I just texted Mark and said, look, get some of these hops, because when we open we're going to need them and you can't get hold of them. And he rang me, and we had a good 2-hour conversation about how to go forward. And I said, well, at the end of the day, Mark, if you've got the finance for it, I say we just get brewing, throw it all in a can, get it sold to try and get a reputation, so that when the pubs do open, we're on the front foot. And he was very traditionally led. The brewer they had before me was a very traditional brewer, and he wanted to come away from that, and it just seemed like the ideal time to do it. When we had no cask customers, it just seemed like the best time to complete the shift direction, and that's what we did.
So what was the first beer that you made?
The first beer we made was Velvet Bomber, and that was purely because the brewer previous to me had already put the grist in the day we got locked down. So there was a grist sat in the grist case that was for a 5%. He wanted to put biscuits in the mash tun and all sorts. So it was a dark grist, and it was like, right, okay, what do I do with this? Being craft and what have you, it was a very traditional grist. So I thought, right, well actually if we do a 5-barrel brew, make it 10%, have it as a chocolate stout, and that was the first beer I brewed, and it was literally just because I had to.
We had it during lockdown at Central. It went very well.
Yeah.
It was a really nice beer, that, actually, to be fair. So we're going to crack open the black IPA. So if you wouldn't mind, if you want to grab hold of the little can, and we're going to take a look at it. So tell us a little bit about this beer.
So Clouds Across the Moon, what happened was back at Standish, we had a bit of a problem with one of the beers. Accidentally, a load of caramel had been thrown into a grist for a double IPA. So I had to think on my feet and thought, right, well, we'll do a black IPA with it. And I can't even remember what we called that at the time, but we just put it in cask and keg, and it was really popular. So when we moved here, Mark wanted it putting in a can. So I wasn't actually 100% happy with the original beer. So when we rebrewed it, I took the opportunity to brew it as I wanted it to, and yeah, it became Clouds Across the Moon.
You become a little bit of a perfectionist as well. You've said to me many times that you make these ever so slight little alterations and adjustments to all of your beers, and before you can be absolutely perfect with them. And this is still one that you're not 100% with, but I think it's fantastic. I've had it before. One of the reasons I've come is because this beer specifically, I really, really enjoyed it when we did the Manchester Beer and Cider Festival tasting. It blew me out the water. Black IPAs are the kind of beers now that they almost seem to be falling out of fashion. People are going for white stouts, or they're kind of going really, really intense NEPAs or dippers and things like that, and we're seeming to move away from this balance of the malt and hop profile. The black IPA got this really intense, strong malt profile underneath, very dark malt, and then this intensity of hops balancing out underneath. And I love that style. We're just not seeing it around as much anymore, so we've tasted this and go, oh, it's about time I saw a good black IPA. So we're going to crack it open, which I'm dead excited to do, and we're going to try it. I've got branded glassware as well. How often in my videos have I talked about the fact that I don't get branded glassware because they always end up getting robbed from my pub, so it's about time I actually had branded glassware, which is amazing. So checking it out, taking a look, and the light's working really well on this, so we're not completely black. We've got a nice little brown reddish tinge just to the base of it, just slightly off white head with a tinge of a kind of caramel cream kind of look to it as well. That sounds so good. But yeah, a kind of caramel cream kind of tinge to the head. But it doesn't look like it's going to be too weighty. I'm expecting to have a really nice balance between the malts and hops. And I don't know why I'm saying that to you, because I've already tried it, as you already know. And I know that it's already got that fantastic balance. On the nose, can you tell us a little bit about what it should smell like?
What it should smell like?
What it should smell like. What it does smell like.
This, I always find smell quite subjective, so I get a lot of stone fruits, lemon.
Lemon's an interesting one.
But it's then backed up by the malt, so I can actually smell the caramel.
The caramel works very well in that.
Like I say, it's actually been a good 3 months since I tried this beer last, to be fair, because it all sold out. And yeah,
You shouldn't be upset about that by any means.
I'm not upset, but
I can smell the little bit of a hot profile to it as well. I get a little bit of kind of that almost herbally, grassy kind of notes just coming through. What are the malts in this? Remind me.
the malt is pale malt. It's got pale malt, Cara 150, wheat, oats. The blackness comes from something else, which I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Trade secret.
It is a bit of a trade secret. It's nothing sinister, and it's certainly not like food colouring or anything.
No.
It's legitimate, but
It's asphalt from outside. The tar from the streets of Warrington have gone into it. No, certainly not. And the hops?
do you know what? I honestly can't remember.
Oh,
I brewed it 4 months ago.
Well, it's lucky you do put them on the can, which brewers out there, that's very, very helpful, just so you know.
That's
so we've
fine.
got Citra Cryo, Amarillo, and Centennial. And I think Amarillo has been spelt wrong.
Yeah, quite possibly.
It has actually been spelt wrong, which is great.
And Centennial probably has as well. If you know.
I think Centennial's okay.
Oh no, yes,
Well,
Centennial's
Amarillo
right.
has been spelt with 2 I's.
Yes. Yeah, I'll shout at Gavin for that.
Sorry, because there's none left anywhere, so it's fine.
No, there is that.
Yeah. Well, I like things like that when you do that kind of stuff. So we've got quite bitter hops there. Obviously, Citra's got quite an intense bitter flavour up on the roof of the palate. I've talked about that one with you before. Centennial, as well as being like a kind of sister of Cascade in a way, and that works very, very well in black IPAs. Hence the Cascadian black ales that you get, and so you can get that really, really nice balance between the two. And then that Amarillo is going to be bringing all them grassy notes out.
Yeah.
Have I got that about right?
Yeah, the Centennial is where you're getting your pine from. The Citra, you shouldn't get too much harshness from Citra because that was put in, that was dry hop very, very late. So you should just be getting the fruits from the Citra.
Rather than any bitterness
Yeah.
from it. One of the reasons my least favourite hop is Citra.
Right.
I really don't like it. Especially if it's blended, no problem, but single hop Citra beers, I just find them so harsh upon the palate.
Right.
Really, really bad. So I'm glad that it's not going to come through too strongly on that. So should we take a big swig and see what this one tastes like? Oh, it's lush. That is lush. That initial kick of the hops just on the front of the palate, then across the tongue you get that really, really beautiful just wash over of that kind of stone fruits, that really nice biscuity malt. There's a little bit of a kind of toffee note going on there as well. And then again, right at the back, those hops come back in and just bite at the back of the palate. That's lovely. Really, really beautiful. Is that what it should taste like?
Yes, it is. I'm actually getting, I didn't get this the last time I tried it, but quite a lot of chocolate towards the middle section of the palate.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember that the first time I tried it, but that's actually quite pleasant because it mellows the hops out a bit.
Is that something that could have matured over time, or do you just
It
think
more
you
than
just
likely
mixed
is,
it?
yeah. Because they do, all beers you do when you put them into can, they do mature, and they do tend to change. So it's like if you, obviously the big hop beers are the ones to watch for that. So we always do it. We always try can when the day we're canning it, leave it for a week, try it, and then decide whether we're going to release it, whether it's good enough. And then I tend to try one after a month, and they always develop and they become smoother.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is obviously
Improved.
mellowed out. Yeah, and the hops have taken a bit more of a backseat.
I think it's a wonderful example of style, and I do love that juxtaposition between the two. Obviously, the black IPA is a big oxymoronic kind of thing.
Yeah.
We talked about this during the tasting, but you know, how do you kind of counteract that when people turn around and say there's no such thing as a black IPA? Because they do, and they.
Well, yeah, they do. But at the end, I don't know how you counteract that, do you? Because it is an IPA that is black. So it's.
It is simple enough, isn't it? It's a simple argument. I think one of the things they were talking about was like obviously with the India Pale Ale and things like that, is that it was more referencing the heavily hot nature of the beer rather than it was what the malt profile was. And if you go back to some of the original traditional IPAs, they were actually quite dark malted.
Yeah.
Because pale malt really wasn't discovered as such up until much later. So your IPAs that we would know traditionally, your kind of English IPAs would have been an awful lot darker. Maybe not quite that dark, but certainly a lot darker than the ones we see nowadays.
Yeah.
So, you know, the pale isn't necessarily the important thing. It's the heavy hop, the intensity of the hop flavour coming through, and just balancing beautifully well with that really, really strong malt profile as well. I love that. Really do. So, Anthony, tell me about the move, because you started off in Standish.
We did, yes.
And then you moved to Warrington.
Yep.
And then you've got another unit that you're getting involved in very soon as well, because these tanks are all being moved out.
Well, yeah, the tanks are staying. It's more storage space that we need. So what happened there was we were at Standish. We were a 10-barrel plan, and we knew pretty soon we were going to outgrow it anyway. And then we got a letter from the landlord basically saying that he'd sold the farm, and we had to speak to the new owners about whether we could stay. The new owners, in fairness, said, well, actually you can, but we will eventually need the space back. So we started looking, found this unit. We actually wanted to stay in Wigan, or as near to Wigan as we possibly could, but there was just nothing. No units that were suitable, because obviously with the brewery, the height is a big issue, the space. Can't really be too close to residential because then you've got the smells and the coming and going.
which we know from Central, because we're right next to a brewery, and it's the most amazing smell in the world. You wake up and it's like Weetabix straight away, and then this lovely hot profile coming through afterwards, and you're like, oh my god, I want a beer so bad. But not everybody likes it, unfortunately, so yeah, you do have to think about residential areas.
Yeah, so we found out we had to move, and then I found out through the grapevine that Vocation was selling their original kit, so I rang John and spoke to him about that, and yeah, so we had to scale up anyway, so it came at the right time for us. So we moved in, installed this kit, got bigger fermenters, and to be fair, considering lockdown, we've done really well. And I will take this opportunity to thank everyone that has supported us through it, because it's been a very hard time for everyone. Obviously hospitality businesses and just people in general, and the way we have been supported this year has been really fantastic, and we really do appreciate it. It's really helped us out.
I think it's a real testament to the quality of the beers, because you've been able to really prosper in a time when effectively you shouldn't have been able to. And you've gone from kind of having mediocre kind of like brews before to all of a sudden being absolutely out of this world and really getting a big name for yourself in the craft industry. Obviously, the Wigan area especially is just raking your beers in, and I think it just shows how much quality the product is, and how much experience you've got, and how much passion you've got. So passion is a really important thing for me with beer. It's very clear that with how much of a perfectionist you are, with how much you care about tweaking your beers, with how much you care about each and every one, that you're very passionate about what you do, and that's going to show, and it's demonstrated because you've done so well during the time when you really shouldn't have done.
It's
Speaking of the Vocation kit, there's actually still a Vocation symbol on the copper over behind us, so we'll get a shot of that as well, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I quite like that. But
well, part of me wanted to get rid of it, and then part of me thought, well, no, it is part of my past. I was very successful there. There still are. I mean, Matt's taken it leaps and bounds as well. So I thought, actually, I'll leave it partly there. So yeah.
So out of all the beers that you brew, what's been your favourite one so far?
My favourite one I've brewed here. Do you know what I was thinking about this earlier and I can't remember which one. Soul City is the one that I'm most pleased with now. I did think that was where I've got it to. I really enjoy it. But the actual beer would probably be the sour. So the Purple Haze, I was really happy with that, the way it came out. It's not the first sour I've ever brewed, but it was the first sour I brewed here, and it was raspberry, and I was a bit concerned about how much raspberry. And when you first develop a new beer, it's always a bit of an experiment, and you can have a very educated guess, but you still, till it comes out, don't know how it's going to be. And it's like the sours we did at Vocation range from stupidly sour to rip your face off to not very sour at all, and I just wanted a balance. I wanted it to be a bit of a gateway sour, so people who said I don't like sours, they're far too sour, would actually enjoy it. And I took 6 cans home, in fact last week when it was really hot, and just sat in the garden drinking and really enjoyed it. So that's probably my favourite one I've done here. Elsewhere, Vocation's not in Nice. The first time we did that, really loved that. I've still actually got a bottle of it at home.
We did that a few times. That's the 7% chocolate stout, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember that one, yeah.
So the first brew we put it in champagne bottles.
Oh, okay.
So Vocation we actually bottled initially.
Yeah.
Before we started canning, and Naughty and Nice was the last ever one we bottled, and like I say, we were in 750ml champagne bottles.
Was it champagne re-fermented, or was it just bottled like that?
No, it was just bottled like that, but that was actually funny because we ordered the pallet of bottles, and I had an appointment that morning, so the guy who owns Vocation had to offload the pallet off the truck, and it fell off the forklift and smashed half the bottles. So we only got half the amount of bottles we were meant to get, so it really became a collector's item.
Absolutely, of course. You've managed to keep hold of one.
One, yeah. Yeah, and it's still in my kitchen at home.
If anybody's got one out there, then keep hold of it because you've got a collector's item there. So what's the size of the brew kit you're on now? Do you move from a 10 to...
Officially it's a 15 barrel kit, but when it was put in a vocation it was heavily overspec'd, so the mash tun's 30 barrels so that you can brew big beers on it, and we can actually get 20 barrel out of it up to about 6%.
Okay.
So we run it at 20 barrel, and then the big beers, so it's like if we do a triple or a double, we tend to brew between 10 and 15 depending on how we think it'll go.
And what is coming up for you in the future? What's your big targets now? I noticed you've got some wooden barrels hiding over in the corner.
We have, yeah. So yeah, that's for Christmas. We filled 3 of them, 3 of the rum ones last week with a cherry stout that we've just released in cans, so I pulled 600 litres back of that. Yeah, so I pulled 600 litres of the cherry stout out and put it into the white rum barrels, so that'll be for Christmas. We've got quite a few other beers coming up. There's been talk of a white stout. We've currently got in tank a New England IPA with Talus. We did a double IPA with Talus last year, and I've fallen in love with that hop. It's just the aroma coming off it is stunning.
It's a big hop at the moment, yeah. Talus, yeah. I think alongside kind of Sabro, we're getting a lot of breweries playing around with Talus, and I think you should expect really good things from that.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. We've got a couple of big hitters coming, which I'm not going to tell you too much about, but they will come out. And we also got told last week we are in the Beer 52's One to Watch box in August. So that is, I think it's something in the region of 33,000 cans they're wanting.
Nice.
So yeah, that's we've just got.
That's going to nationalise you as well.
Yeah.
B52, isn't it? That's going to be a massive change for you.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Do you know what you're going to put in it?
The one in I can't remember what it was called. We've done that many specials. I just call the beers whatever they are. So it's like, for instance, the Talus Nipa, I call Talus Nipa.
Yeah. And
then the name's decided in the office and what have you. So I forget the names of it, but it was a Sabro beer we did last year. That's one of them they're having, and then they're taking Speed Wobble as well.
That's one in core as well. That's
yeah, Speed Wobble is a core, yeah.
Just a question, how does Beer 52, have you been a part of it before, and how's it affected business?
Beer 52 we did at Vocation, so they approached us at Vocation and they wanted a red IPA. So we basically took Heart and Soul, made it red and sent it to them. That was immensely popular, so they reordered it along with all sorts of others, and this was before the supermarkets and this, that and the other. And that, I think, certainly helped Vocation getting the name out there. And yeah, so I think the fact that we've been chosen, apart from it obviously being an honour because they taste hundreds of beers and choose, I think there's 3 breweries have chosen this year. We're one of them, and like you say, it gets the name out there, and for them to choose it alone is a good thing.
Absolutely. So. Okay guys, so this has been Clouds Across the Moon, which is the 6% black IPA from Twisted Wheel, who are in Warrington. So I'd like to thank Anthony for taking the time to talk to us, and I hope you guys will check out his beers. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as we've enjoyed drinking this beer, which we have, or at least I hope you have. You made it.
Yeah, I thought
But
so.
I have, definitely. And check out the other videos, keep Wadge banking, and I'll see you next time for another episode of the Beer Huntress. Cheers. If you enjoyed this video, guys, then please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hit that notifications button to get alerts when our new video is out. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram, so check out the links in the description and follow us on there as well. If there's anything you'd like to see us review, please pop it in the comments and we'll pop it in the pump for later. Keep Wadge banking, and I shall see you all next time for another episode of The Beer Huntress.